Hello. Today we're going to be using this video to learn how to do basic docket research on the Docket Alarm application. Now we start all of our research using the search bar at the top of the page. Within the search bar we can do basic searches such as keyword searches, searches we might do in a Google-esque fashion. So in this example I have a friend, Elvina, and she is always getting attacked by cows, but no one knows why. So she comes to me and she says, Ken, please help me find this exhibit so I can convince people that I'm not just pissing off friendly cows. So I tell her, well, I have Docket Alarm now, so I am on it. So a basic search in Docket Alarm to find that document might be something like, I enter a phrase for attacked by a cow, and then I might simply add her name. I press enter to run the search. You can also press the magnifying glass to the right of the search bar to run the search as well. For my top result, I can say that my friend was indeed attacked by a cow in April of 2016. So on April 23rd of 2016, she was indeed attacked by a cow. Now, let's assume that you are like most people and you do not possess information as specific as the information I possessed in the last example. By the way, we can return to the main page by clicking this logo here on the top left. So the way that we can deal with having, let's say, less specific information is by narrowing our search to specific parts of a docket sheet. So we do that using filters. So in this example, let's assume that you never got over the Katy Perry versus Taylor Swift feud of 2018. So you are now a huge T Swift fan, because who isn't? And you want to know, okay, well, what has Katy Perry been up to in terms of litigation since 2018? So I might use a party filter to find out. So you come to your search bar, you use the party filter, you enter her name, and you go. Now, a party filter is a filter that's only going to look for Katy Perry in the portions of the docket sheet header that contain information about the plaintiff or the defendant. So I go ahead and run my search once more. Now I'm going to get a number of results. Let's go ahead and sort them by relevance. Now I'm going to get a number of results, but you can see that I've used the party filter, and from the results you can see that the party filter is being reflected. So here at the bottom where it says defendant appellant, you can see that Katy Perry is also known as Catherine Hudson. Fun fact in case you never knew that. But I can see that this reflected in each of the examples. Now going back to the main page, you can also run a search via docket number. So to run a search via docket number, you can use the docket number function. Just like the party function or the party filter, the docket number filter is going to limit searching a docket number to just that portion of the docket header where the docket numbers are traditionally located. So in this example, let's do docket, and then we enter a couple of options. Now I'm going to use more than one docket number, so I'm going to separate them by the word or. And from here we will go. Now from here I have 254 results. But you can see that they are correct. I've got, in each of these results, I've got docket number 20-797, I've got docket number 16-7551, so on and so forth. Now you may be wondering, why on earth do I have 254 results associated with two docket numbers? Well, one pro tip to keep in mind is that courts will reuse numbering. And sometimes they will reuse numbering for courts that are of the same type, at the same level, in the same state. So the Federal District Court for the Eastern District of New York will use the same docket numbering as the Federal District Court for the Southern District of New York, despite it being endlessly frustrating if you are like myself. But luckily, Docket Alarm has a lovely workaround, because unlike Pacer, Docket Alarm does have the ability to designate court filters when you're running a docket number search, where you can designate a court filter regardless, but you can also do it when you're designating or when you're searching by docket number. The way that I do that is I want to come to the right of the search bar. Currently it says all courts. I click a drop down. I then get groups of filters. I can open up each one to explore the various sub options. In this example, let's just check a box for all federal, click done, and then we want to rerun our search. Now right away I go from 254 results to just 17. So that is the power of just narrowing down your results to specific court or courts. Now, the jurisdiction selector is also a great way for you to explore coverage. So you can go to docketalarm.com/coverage to look at our coverage map. You can also simply look at your options for, okay, well, let's open up state. Let's open up Arizona. Let's go and look at all of the various courts that I have access to, so on and so forth. So we can see from there. So let's move away from this. And let's talk about, okay, so let's assume that you forget everything that I just told you about designing search queries manually or writing your search queries yourself. There's two ways to refresh your memory. So if I hover over jurisdiction selector once more, and I click on the tab to the furthest left, I open up a cheat sheet. Your cheat sheet is going to be a quick reference card for designing searches manually. To the bottom right of the cheat sheet, there's also See Full Search Documentation. This is going to take you to a web page that's going to have a full list of all of the filters and or ways to Boolean operators and the like used to manually design search queries. Now, of course, in Docket Alarm, nothing is designed to be difficult. So if you are a person that does not prefer designing your searches manually, you can also use the Query Builder. So Query Builder is found if I come to the search bar, right side, left of the magnifying glass here, click the gear, opens up the Query Builder. The Query Builder is an advanced search tool that manually writes your search query as you enter text into data fields. So from the Query Builder here, I could come over and I could say, okay, well, let's look at Earth Rights International as my, that's actually supposed to be my firm. Let's enter Earth Rights International as my firm. Let's come down to the self-designated filters here on the bottom right. Let's click a drop down for nature of suit. Let's click various codes. And then the nice thing about the self-selecting filters is that it will populate it for 2 automatically. There's a plus sign here. You can add up to 2 more, and the list of self-designated filters is quite broad. So I always recommend checking those out. Now, once you've made your selections, do not forget, if you're interested in selecting or narrowing by a court or courts or agency, you want to come over to the tab to the right of the Query Builder to select those options. And then, of course, once everything is fine and dandy, we want to click Search in the bottom right of the Query Builder. We then end up on our search results page. From here, I've got 53 results. They're sorted by relevance. Of course, I can resort them by date and the like. I can also use filters here on the left-hand side of my screen. I can search within. I can apply filters for everything from attorney to court to party to status to date. I can also decide, do I want to be searching by just docket sheet or by docket sheet and or docket documents? And I can apply any of these as my heart desires. I can also, from here, once I'm satisfied with my search query and the filters I've applied to said query, I can then set up a search query alert. A search query alert will send you a notification email anytime new litigation occurs or changes occur to existing litigation that meet the specifications of your search query as narrowed by your chosen filters. So the way that I set up a search query alert is I come up to the top of the screen just below the search bar, I click Track Search. Now right away it tells me exactly what I'm going to be tracking in my search query alert. I'm tracking documents and docket sheets matching that contain the firm Earth Rights International and that fall within these various nature of suit codes. I then choose my frequency. With search query alerts, I would tell you choose as high a frequency as you desire. You do not incur court costs when you're dealing with search query alerts, regardless of court type. If you decide to select continuous, it is designed to be to check up to 16 times a day. There's also an option for older results. If you want to include older results, this will send you notification emails every time older cases, so cases older than 3 weeks, are input into the system. So a common way that this is utilized is if we add new courts and let's say they're pulling in 20 years of court cases. If any of those 20 years of older court cases meets the specifications of your search query alert, you will get a notification email if the box is checked for include older results. Otherwise, the cutoff period is 3 weeks prior to when you set up the search query alert. Once you're satisfied with everything you've done here, you want to hit Save Tracking Settings. give them a moment to set up. I'll show you where that alert is located in just a moment. Now from here, let's also talk about things we can do with an individual docket sheet. So let's go ahead and open up the second case, the Buddha Jam versus International Finance Core case. We click into it. Now from here, we can do a couple of things. The first thing to note is that you can update a docket sheet manually. So here you can see that I last updated this docket sheet 32 minutes ago. If I want to get it even more frequent, I click the manual update, just like I've done here. Give it a moment to reload. It's going to reach out to the court, refresh, and then come back to you. Now, once you are satisfied with how up-to-date a docket sheet is, of course, you can then scroll down. You can read about future calendar entries. You can also read your docket entries and their various descriptions. You can click on the hyperlinked docket entry number in order to download the documents associated with this, with any given docket entry. Now, a couple of things to note is if I hover over a docket entry and it tells me something like no snippet available, that means that this docket document has already been downloaded. So if I downloaded this a second time or a third time, I will not pay court costs. So in Docket Alarm, one nice perk is that only one user pays court costs one time. So we use what we call crowdsourcing. So a great way to define it is if Jane Doe downloads 3 docket documents, so we know with Pacer we pay up to $3 per document, 10 cents a page for everything we download. Let's assume Jane Doe downloads 3 docket documents, pays $9 in court costs. I can then go in and download those same 3 docket documents and pay $0 in court costs. So once more, crowdsourcing, only one person pays the court costs. In this case, it is the unfortunate case of Jane Doe. So if I hover over and it tells me, okay, well, document not downloaded versus displaying a snippet or simply saying no snippet available, I can then click into it. You always get the option to view a document before you commit to downloading it. There is no charge for viewing. So I can view it, I can then download it. Now going back to the docket sheets, once I am satisfied, so let's assume that I've come in here, I've manually updated it if I so desired, I've reviewed it, I decide that I want to track updates to a single docket sheet. The way that I do that is I want to come up to the top of the docket sheet, above the docket sheet header, just below the search bar, I want to click Track Docket. I click it. Just like with a search query alert, I will get a notification email upon a designated frequency anytime changes occur to this docket sheet. So here I can see, okay, well, if I want to do continuous, it's going to be $1.60 a day. Now, court costs may incur when you're talking about updates to a docket sheet, depending on what's happening, versus search query alerts where you never have court costs. So in this case, we know that every time we go into Pacer to check for an update to a docket sheet, they charge us 10 cents per time we check. So in this case, continuous was 16 times a day. If I go to check that many times, I pay $1.60 per day, potentially in court costs to Pacer. So there's also the ability to, if you check just underneath the frequency of your emails, there's email filings as attachment setting. Keep in mind that just like with checking, if your court involves costs, so we know once more Pacer, 10 cents a page, up to $3 a document. If I choose to have my documents associated with new filing entries downloaded and attached to the notification emails, I will pay those court costs as well, potentially. And there's a warning about it here as well. Then I click Save Track Settings, just like with before. And I'm all set to go for tracking this docket sheet as well. We can now return to the main page. Now from here we can see that on our home page now I've got the tracked docket here. I've also got the search query alerts just below it. There's these little switches here if I want to cut the tracks on and off. And then it's that easy. I'll start to get those notification emails right away. Now you also have the ability to track email or to track cases according to things like case type. So on the left side of your screen, we have something here that says new case alerts. Now just below that, I have got federal district. I can track cases based upon nature of suit code. So I come down here where this little bar is here. I can then select, okay, well, if I wanted to do torts to land once more, I then open up either of these categories. It takes me to that screen. Okay, well, I can manually update the list if I choose to do so right away. I can then also say, okay, well, I want to receive notifications. So I just updated the list here. I can then come up to the top here and say, okay, well, I want to be notified anytime there's a new lawsuit that's filed that falls under the nature of suit code that meets or that applies to appeals of torts to land cases. This is a particularly nice alert because it does all the work for you. We call these one-click alerts, and they're corresponding to every nature of suit code for all of federal courts, both district and appellate level. You can also, from this list, if you would rather track individual cases, you can come down here. So if I use the first example of the Marilyn Howard case, I can track just this individual docket sheet versus setting up an alert for the entire NOS code. Now, last thing we'll talk about is you can also potentially reduce court fees if you set up your ECF integration. If you're unfamiliar with an ECF integration, so if you are allowed to file documents in federal courts via PACER, you receive ECF credentials. So what you do is, if you come over to your ECF integration, there on the bottom left, you enter your information to log in. What we do is, if you have ECF credentials, you get one free view with no court costs of every docket document from legal matters with which you are involved. So what we give you the ability to do is you enter your ECF information, we then pull those documents from your one free view, and you're allowed to email them to anyone. So we use crowdsourcing, except in this example, you don't pay the court costs, neither do the parties that are subsequent to you that are receiving those free view documents. So just a nice little perk. Not going to dwell too long on an additional way to save in court costs. Finally, as this is a video and not a live session where you would have the ability to ask questions, I do want to point out your support options. If you have questions for me directly, you can email them to support@docketalarm.com. Otherwise, you do receive complimentary and unlimited access to live reference and technical support Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once more, that is 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can access live support options in the bottom left of your screen. So here where it says support, you open it up, there's your various support options. You can access support using phone, chat, or email. So check those out as your needs arise. I encourage you to utilize such things because, once more, there is never a cap or an extra charge for getting as much support as needed. Otherwise, thank you so much for sticking with me for the entirety of the video, and I look forward to our next session together. Have a lovely rest of your week.